Been able to see it? Okay, got it. And what's his name? Maradi, can you share the yesterday recording? Is it possible to share
Yes,
it or
yes,
not?
yes, yes, I'll share it. Yeah.
Okay, it's for my friend.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were talking mostly about the clinical project overview, the one BAB, the project. I will, Bala, I will share you those notes also to you to your email today, and I
Okay.
also share the SAP and the protocol, and ask a few questions about it, and we're gonna discuss those ones today also. And before that, we have also discussed about the classification of SDTM. So what are the different classes present in the SDTM? So which we mentioned yesterday. Okay, let me pull that information so that you can. This one. Okay. Bala is experienced in SQL and he knows much about like more knowledge about SQL software, and he has a real-time experience, and he's more keen to learn for the clinical things.
Okay.
I still have some experience on the brief things, so he also have like SAS, advanced, all those experience. So he just want to see it, what is the project about and all those things.
Okay.
So we are talking mostly for the dummy project here, and we are not going to have any kind of real data, just for the confidential things. The disclaimer. So the SDTM domain. So we started first with SDTM only. So then we go to the atoms, then we go to the tables and listing and figures. Okay. So yesterday I have explained the project overview, the study titles, and I have sent the protocol to the Maradi to read about the primary and secondary objectives, and also ask him about the study design and how many populations present in the protocol, and what are the tables and listings present, those ones, and if there are any kind of derivations present. So, so those information we will be discuss later on when we go to the start doing the programming and we come to know more about the information. Okay, so today I gonna uh, tell you mostly about the control terminology and how it works in the project, like how we track the work. So we're gonna also have experience, tell you about like paper CRF, the case report forms, and how do you do the annotation for the CRF. The just flow of the data, like how the raw data is set. So this is the general flow of the data. Okay. So we have raw data sets. I explained yesterday. So then SDTM, then Adam, then TLF for the reports. Okay. These are all reports. I have explained you for the SDTM, what is SDTM, and like study data tabulation model, analysis data model, and tables and listing and figures. Okay, these are coming from the CDISC organizations. So the Clinical Data Interchange Standard Consortium. This is the organization. They will provide these implementation guidelines, and all the clinical data should have to follow these. The rules are provided by the CDISC. Okay, so that we already discussed. Okay, so these are the classifications. I just need to explain for Bala. So we have like special purpose domains. We have demographic, comments, subject elements, subject visits. So we have a general observation classes, which are divided as a three classes: the interventions, events, and findings. So interventions means basically you have exposure, the concomitant medication, and exposure collectors. And the events, you have adverse events, medical history, clinical events. So these are the only few domains, but you will be have more. So it depends on the study. So you will be have more domains, but these are the general related information. Okay. So the findings, you have vital signs and laboratory and electrocardiogram. So we have another one, the findings about, which is the skin response, which is the only domain is present in this particular classification. And so we have another like trial design domains, the trial arms, trial summary, trial elements, trial inclusion, exclusion criteria. So those will have it. And we have supplementary domains and rec, and also we have custom domains. So we go one by one when you go to the doing the programming. So what exactly been included? I'm not going to cover all those things, but I'm just covering the main for the study, major part of the studies. The safety related data sets and some efficacy related data sets. Those one will be covered in this particular project. Okay, so because for example, the vital signs laboratory is common for all the studies, so it should have to be there. And even adverse event and medical histories, both those ones will be considered as the safety data sets, and the vital signs laboratory will be considered as the efficacy data set. So these ones will be present for every study. These are common, okay. But some particular some like for example oncology therapeutic areas, so we will have extra domains. So we have a tumor measurement, tumor identification, and the response. So those are the extra the data sets we have to create, and it depends on the therapeutic area and which study. But if you have knowledge on these four, are like the safety related, adverse event, medical history, and demographics, it would be sufficient for you to at least to have some base knowledge, okay. Because major part of the study will be have these kind of domains only. Even the trial summary, supplementary domains, relevant domains, those one we will be discuss those ones too. And if you have this knowledge, should be enough for at least for like 3 or I would say like 3 years of experience you can keep it. Okay, so so for today the control terminology. Okay, I'll show you the SDTM implementation guidelines, how it looks like. So implementation guidelines. So I mentioned yesterday the current version we are using is 3.4, and the date is 2021. So you will be having the questions in interviews. They will ask you what is the difference between the 3.3 and the 3.4 version. What are the changes that happens? So usually when you go to the CDISC directly, if you Google it in the CDISC, you will know more about. If you go to the SDTM, you will know more about what are the changes. Even if you open 3.4 version, it will be mentioned in the appendix or in the preface. They mention what are the changes that happens. The same like pharma, when you do like any kind of changes, you keep in the front, right? So those changes will be, you can see, and you just take 1 or 2 examples and you can mention in the interviews. Okay, so I kept only this one. One second, I'm just going to share the whole window. Entire screen. Okay, so the first one is the implementation guidelines. So I already open here. I think it's open. Okay, so the version I have it 3.2, but in real time you will be having 3.4, and it is a free source. Okay, you can download easily. It's a free source. You just need to sign up and you get. So these are the this is very important document. I would say like it's a bible for the SDTM datasets. If you know much about some information from this documents, it can be easier for you to do the SDTM datasets. So this is the one I'm talking about. What are the changes from 3.1.3 to 3.2? So these are the changes in 3.2 version. So you just take 1 or 2 examples. It should be enough for the interview purpose only. Okay, so we have introduction here. So I would ask you to read these ones because it's very important. It will give some information. What is the general strategy, how they follow the guidelines, everything will be here. And the other thing is, so these are the models. So we are talking about mostly about these ones, the interventions, events, the classification of the domains. So let's say, for example, model for special purpose domains. Okay, so we have 4 data sets in this classification. So we have comments, demographics, subject elements, and subject lists. Okay, so each data set you will have the table. The table, it gives like a standard how you represent in your the raw data, how you represent in the standardized format. So these are the variables you can see here: the study ID, domain, R domain, unique subject IDs. These are the standard variables. So you need to map these ones for the CRF. Okay, that's case report form. Which one I will show you how we do it. So the label for each variable name, you should have a label there. So for example, what is the study ID? Is a study identifier. And what is the character? Like, is it character or numeric? It will mention like, is it numeric character, like the type, or it is a character, like attributes. It will give the information. Okay, then after the control terminology, or the code list or formats. So they give some code list here. Okay, when you are giving the information for the submission, you should have to follow this control terminology. But I'll explain you what is the control terminology. One second, I'll open that. Oh yeah. Okay, so these are the control terminology. Okay, so for example, so here the domain is CO. Okay, domain is CO. Okay, so this is domain because it's common domain, so it should have to like 2-character abbreviation for the domain. So when you are writing this domain variable, you should always have to keep as assign as a CO. But it's okay, don't worry about that one. I will explain when I'm doing the programming, but I'll explain the other example. What is this one? Okay, let's say for ISO 8601 format. So ISO, you know, right, International Standards Organization, they will provide some how to represent the date formats. Okay, this is the reference standard, start date and date time. So when you're writing your mapping your the particular variable name, so it has to be in this code format. Okay, the code list control terminology. So what is the ISO 8601 format? So you go there. So this control terminology you can download from the cdisk, and it is free source. You can get that from there. Next. Okay, seems like it's not there. Filter. So I'm not sure yet. Okay, so I don't see that format, but we will check for the other one. So yeah, maybe NY. Yeah, maybe age unit. Anything sex or race. Okay. Let's find it. Okay, so you see here the cdisk submission value is sex. Okay, the code is sex here. I mean the code list name is sex, but usually in the raw data they will mention as a female or small f or f or capital female. But in the submission, when you do the submission, it should have to be in the one letter only. It should be in the F only. Okay, so like this, you can use each code list and how you want to represent in the submission purpose. So for that one, like for example, if he's a male, we always have to be M. Okay, for example, yeah. Um, let's say open something. Open program data set. Not sure if we have a data set there. Okay, so I don't have any data set, but we will go through there. But just to understanding for you, so this is the control terminology. Okay, so if your values like this, it should always has to be represent submission. When you do the submission, it also always has to be in this format. Okay, so for example, if your raw values like u and k, but when you're standardizing, your value should be like this. Okay, unknown. So like that, you will have all this code list based on the implementation guidelines we should have to follow. Okay, so we have ethnic, and you see that there is a star mark here, which is the star mark. Either you can use your own, like the sponsor will define the own kind of control terminology. For that reason, they mention as a sponsor asterisk here. Okay, so like this, each data set have each table for whole implementation guidelines. So you can check for each. So we have demographic. So we have subject elements. Subject elements, we have one table. Okay, so we have a subject visits. So like this, you will have for example, concomitant procedure, substance use. So each one have the standardized how they want to represent the variable name and how they represent the type and the control terminology and the role. Okay, so here another very important ones, these three columns. Okay, okay, the role is main to identify the variable. Okay, so what is exactly, like for example, identifier. The basically it helps to identify the record. Okay, so you see here the study ID is identifier, domain is identifier, unique subject ID is identifier. Okay, one second, I'll just open another one for your better understanding. Okay, so here, um, okay, so I can show you this this file to you. So here the variable. Okay, so variable have 5 topics: the identifier, topic, timing, qualifier, and the rule. Okay, so the identifier helps the identification of the record. For example, study ID, domain, unique subject ID. Okay, these are the identifier. These variables we will be considered as an identifier group. And the CMTRT, which is the topic variable. So what is the topic variable? The topic variable for this concomitant medication, okay, and this is the main variable. It represents the whole data set. Whole concomitant medication represent data set represent this variable. So that's why we consider as a topic variable. Okay, uh, here the specify the focus of the observation, like test study term, and they in the interview they will ask you what is the topic variable for the concomitant medication. So you should have to tell CMTRT. Okay, so you just try to write the each data set what is the topic variable, and forget about the identifiers and the synonyms. So those they won't ask you anything, but the topic variable will be important one. And also another one is you can see here one record per recorded intervention occurrence, so per subject. So basically what is talking about, for each particular subject will have one record. Okay, one record for this particular concomitant medications. So they will ask you in the interviews what is the concomitant medication data structure. Okay, so you should say one record per recorded intervention occurrence or constant dosing interval per subject. So each subject has one record. Okay, so you should have to memorize those ones. Just I would prefer to write for CM, then you write the what is the topic variable CMTRT, and then you write the structure, this one, so that you can easily remember whenever you have the interview. Okay, so we have a synonym variables. So the synonym variables basically it represent, okay, this mention I think here. The synonym variables, like the copying, like it has the same thing like CM modify. Okay, CM modify is a synonym variable, synonym qualifier, and the CM decode also will be the synonym. But so these two variables, the CM modify and CM decode, will have the same thing, but the representation will be the different, but it will be the same. So those kind of variables we call synonym qualifiers. Okay, and the grouping variables, if you have a category things, these are grouping variables. So if you have like CAT, in the extension. Like the CM is the domain name, so you can see the difference. So each variable, the initial one will have CM, and the remaining one will have the other part. Okay, so like CM group ID, CM sponsor ID, CM treatment, CM modify, CM decode, CM cat, and the same thing for the other data sets. So for example, if you go to the if you go to the exposure data sets, so you can see that the first four is common for all the data sets, like study ID, domain, unique subject ID, and you can see the EX sequence, EX group ID, EX ref ID, EX like that. You can easily remember. So if you know one or two domains for one class in each classification, it's going to be easier to you can say to the other domain, you know, to the what are the variable names present in the other domain. So you can just put it like, okay, EC group ID, EC. So if you know one, it should be okay. You can just tell them that all the variables easily. Okay, so there are some timing variables, so which represent the time. If you have a date or time, so those variable, it represents the timing variables. So if you have any kind of results, okay, so results are the result related, so you will get in the record qualifier. No, it's not record qualifier. One second. Included digital. Okay, so do you have any doubts so far? I just go through these ones. Because for me, role, it doesn't matter anything. So for you, the most important one is a core. Core is the most important one because you need to classify how you represent your variable. Okay, so here you can see PERM, IEQ, EXP. So these are the three core variables in the SDTM. Okay, SDTM implementation guidelines. So one is a permissible variable, other one is a required variable, and this one is expected variables. So there is a difference between these three. So if you ask for the required, it must and should will be present in that data set. Okay, if it is a permissible variable, you will have a choice. You can either include it or exclude it. It's up to you. Like reference ID, there is no much importance for that one. But if you collect it in the raw data set, it should also have to be included. Okay, and there is expected variables. So those one, if you have any missing values, it still has to be included. But if you have missing values, you can also be included. Okay, there is a difference. Okay, I'll show you here. So you can see the series core variables. The required variables must always be included in the data set. Okay, and cannot be any missing values. Should not have any missing values. Whereas the expected variables, it can have some missing values, but in most of the cases, it has to be included. Okay, it must still be included in the data set. Permissible variables should be used in a domain as appropriate. The sponsor can decide whether permissible variables should be included as columns. All values are, even if you have a missing values, it's up to you if you can be included or not. Because this is a permissible. It's not like must not been included, but the required expert should also always has to be included in the data set. Okay. Yeah, it's a bit confusing, but when you go to the specification part, you will be know more about what is the required and what is the permissible and what is expected. I just giving the brief things, so no need to worry. When we go to the specification, HSM specification, you will be know what is, when do we have to include the permissible, when do we have to include the required variables and the expected variables.
Ali,
Okay.
one question, Ali.
Yes, Pala.
If data is available, we need to include that variable in the data set. Which variable?
Yes.
Permissible variable.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
If it is not there,
Yeah. It's not must. It's not required. It's not required.
for exceptional, if it is not there, it's not. We can exclude that variable from the data set. But permissible and required, that should be there, right? Whether it is null or whatever.
Permissible variable, if the raw data has that variable, you should have to include it in your data set. For the expected, if you have missing values, You may
Then
have
we-
a missing values, and if it is present in the raw data set, it should have to be included in the data set. Like for example, here is expected, right? So X those. Even if you have a missing values in your raw data set, you should have to be included. Okay. For the required, you don't have any other choice. Even if you have a missing values, it should not be missing values. You should always have to be keep it in the data set. Like for example, study IDs, which is required variables.
so it should not be null. It should not be null.
Yeah, those
Data
ones
should
will
be
always have to be included in the data sets. So
Mhm.
it always be there is no the it always be in the raw data set. Always have the values for these required variables. Okay, so you should not have any missing values. That is one of the interview questions they will ask you. What are the core variables? The core variables in SDTM. So you will say like required, permissible, and expected, and you should also have to make it as a differences. What are the difference between these three?
Okay, for expected only, if there is null values, we won't include. Otherwise, rest of the variables will be there in the data sets.
For expected variables, if you have a missing value, you still have to be included. Okay.
Expected also.
Expected also.
So you mean all variables should be there.
Yes, expected value may contain some null. Even if you have missing value, you should have to be included. But this one, you don't need to have. You must always. But the data cannot be any null for any record. So obviously, because this is mostly related for the the identification of this the subject identifications, the domain, unique subject ID, sequence numbers. So those you should also have to be included, right? You always have to be included in the data set. But
Okay.
it's okay. When you go to the specification, SDTM specification, you will be know more about what I'm talking about now. So because it's kind of confusing for expected. Okay, I'll explain it here. Once again. So the required variables always be included, okay, in the data set.
And should not be null.
Must not have any missing values. Okay. Expected variable. If you have a missing value, you should have to raise the inform the CDM people. Okay, why there is a missing value for this required variables. Okay?
Yeah, required.
Always be included in the data set.
Can have missing values.
Yeah, may have missing values. So you don't need to ask in the CDM people. Okay.
Okay.
Permissible variables included when raw data set have that variables, have the
data.
Have the variables there. Yeah, data variables. Not necessarily required, but
if no data is available, then we can
included when raw data have the data values for those variables. Okay, that's the difference. So, so this SDTM is a implementation guideline. What is that?
that is standard.
Yeah, these are the standards. So the SDTM, what I'm trying to like the raw data set to convert into SDTM format. So basically you're standardizing these variables by using the SDTM implementation guidelines. So you always have to follow these standards. Okay. Clear, Marathi? Do you have any doubts?
No, I'm good.
Okay. So like this, you can go and each domain, you will have some examples how they want to do some particular variables. So you can have a read. Okay, that's it pretty much about for the SDTM implementation guidelines. So we have the CRF part. Let me open the CRF part. So Okay, CRF. So the case report form. So what exactly the case report form? Basically the case report form it's kind of leaflet, you know, when you're doing some kind of survey, they ask you like few questions, right? It works similar like that because each study have their own different kind of case report forms. So when you administer any kind of investigation drug to the patients or healthy subjects, so they will record the information about the patients. They will ask a few questions. They will get some results. All those information will get in this kind of paper, okay, paper formats. Nowadays they have the electronic CRF, so they're directly recording the eCRF. Okay, so this is the exam, one of the example. So you can see there are the vital signs. So we have a time point, schedule, pulse rate, temperature, blood pressure, well-being. So these are the names, and you need to be you need to mapping with the standard variables. Like the variables are here. Let's go for the vital signs. Okay, so you need to map with the study ID. Okay. Now the study ID domain unique subjective should be the common. So you need to map with the sequence, group ID. If you have, like, for example, the position, baseline flag. So what do you have here? So you have a time point, like let's say time point. Yeah, this is the time point. Okay, there is a time point. We have a different time points, the planned time points of the VSTPT. So this variable you have to map with this variable. Okay, you just like mapping. Okay, here is the another important interview question. They will ask you mostly, have you done the CRF, annotated CRF? And if you're keeping like 4 years of experience, yes, you said like, okay, I have done the CRF, annotation CRF. So how did you do? Like, it's just simply you map with the SDTM implementation guidelines.
So, Ali, one question. What is the yellow color one and the red color ones?
Yeah, that's 1 second. I was going to explain. So here you can see the two different colors. So the black one is actual actual information given by the CRF. Okay, and the gen is the CDM people. They do it. Okay, the clinical data management, they have their own kind of standard. The C dash, or they have some other non-clinical implementation guidelines. So they map their own kind of standards. Like, for example, if you have a demographic details, they map as a demogra. If you have a gender, they map as gen. If you have age, they map as age. So when you see the red color one, which is the SDTM one, okay, and this is a general rule for all the companies they follow. If you have a red color, which is SDTM, okay. SDTM.
So who will map that?
The program.
Yeah,
we do
okay.
mostly. Yeah.
Okay, the green color mapping from CDM people.
CDM people, yes, the green color mapping with the. So you don't need to worry about these ones. You just need to map with this the black one. So in okay, let's go for the DM domains. I'll show you an example. Okay. So here you see this is sex variable. Okay, this is a sex variable, and you need to map in the CRF with the gender. Okay, so you put DM, which is the domain name, dot sex. Like that, you map each row, like ethnicity, DM, race. If you have extra information, that goes to the supplementary domain, like QVAL, So if you have height, those ones will go to the vital signs. So in the vital sign variables, you will go those ones. So each thing you need to map. Okay, so I'll show you an example. How do we map? Okay, let's open this one. So you can do in the PDF format is easier for you. Okay, this is a raw one. So this is one of the example how they're collecting the data. Okay, so they put the study ID number and the volunteer ID number, and if it is gender, so they collect the information like this, like how much the blood pressure and the temperature, all those information they record it like that, and you need to map these ones, and you need to get that value automatically. The CDM people, they enter, the data entry people, they enter all the values, and the CDM people, they standardize on their part, and the SDTM people, we standardize our statistical way, the analysis way. Okay, 1 second, I just need to check if you have any. Okay, so I don't have anything. This is already annotated with all the variables. No, it doesn't work.